Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight Sessions. My name is Ilan. I'm the host, and this is really just conversations with people making a massive difference in the disability community and their respective communities. So today I'm really excited to speak to Gayann Brandenburg and Joanne Cohen from the Brain Injury Hope Foundation. Gayann is the executive director and president, and Joanne is the vice president. How's it
Great.
going?
Awesome. How are you?
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing really well, on coming off the end of the holidays and starting a new year is pretty exciting. So, Gan and Joanne, I've taken a little bit of a look at the work the Brain Injury Hope Foundation is doing, and it's very wide ranging, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your journeys and how you started working in Brain Injury Hope Foundation.
Okay, I'll start. I'm Gayann Brandenburg, and I live in a small community just north of Denver, Colorado, and I've been working in the human services field since I was 18, so a few years. I have spent most of my career doing two things. One is working with people with or on behalf of people with disabilities, primarily in the area of employment and helping people get jobs. And then I've also worked in training and coaching in a variety of areas for a wide variety of organizations. I'll turn it over to Joanne to say a little bit about herself, and then we can start talking about Brain Injury Hope and how we got connected with them. Is that okay?
Yeah, so
Perfect.
I'm Joanne Cohen. I've been in the field of training and development and coaching, consulting for 40 plus years at this point. I live in Littleton, Colorado, and the main thing that really has got me into the Brain Injury Hope Foundation is that I am a brain injury survivor. In fact, I've had multiple brain injuries, and so being involved in this organization is near and dear to my heart. And I want to do whatever I can to help people in our community, whether it's brain injury survivors, professionals who serve them, family members, folks in the military, caregivers. Now we call them care partners, friends, etc.
Wow, amazing. And how did you both end up getting involved with the Brain Injury Hope Foundation? And tell us a little bit about the work that you're both doing there.
Want me to take that one, Gayan? Well, again, because I'm a brain injury survivor, I was connected with Dr. Marianne Keatley, who's a co-founder for the Brain Injury Hope Foundation. And when she was thinking about retiring or leaving the foundation, we were approached, and that was in 2018. At that time, it was a 21-year organization, and it was founded primarily to give emergency funds to people with brain injury. And we're a small little organization, so we get all our money through grants, through donations, and we give up to $400 per person. They can apply once a year for over a 3-year period. And we've really helped people in terms of food, rent, mortgage, and refurbished computers as well as utilities. We've helped keep people from being evicted in the month when they were going to be evicted, or their landlord was going to take them to court. And so it's amazing how a $400 donation to them could actually keep them afloat for the next month until they figure out what they're going to do next. Dan?
I think you've covered a big part of it. I think we have a great team. Our board is Marianne Keatley, who we managed to convince to stay on, even though she was going to retire, and Rebecca Albano, who is an attorney who works with a lot of people who have been in car accidents and have brain injuries, and so that's a lot of what Joanne mentioned about the emergency funds and the providing computers for people. And we work with a local nonprofit called Community Computer Connections and get refurbished computers at a really reasonable price and give them to people, and it really helps them.
Amazing.
Yeah, it really helps people that couldn't afford to go out and buy a computer, apply for jobs, just be connected, join some of our sessions on Zoom. Especially with COVID, it really is has been a lifeline for some people. So
In
we're
fact,
happy
since
to be able
COVID,
to
we've
do
given
that.
out more computers in the last year than we did probably since we started. And we have a wonderful relationship with Computer Connections. They've been pretty phenomenal and another partner for us.
That's amazing, and I'm also really interested for some of the listeners who may not know about brain injuries. What are some of the symptoms and kind of the day-to-day life of somebody living with a brain injury?
I live it. uh, their short-term memory, their speed of processing. It has to do with a lot with cognitive fatigue, cognitive functioning. There's a reserve model that we teach people. It's a pie. It's designed by Dr. Mary Lou Asimovic. She wrote a book about mild traumatic brain injury, and she lives in Boulder, Colorado. And it's the main gist of this energy pie or this reserve pie is that a normal brain, a person who doesn't have a brain injury, to live their life, they can fall back on half of that pie in terms of reserves. And a person with a brain injury might have an eighth of that pie, and it takes them the rest of that energy pie to live their life. And when you blow through that little eighth to a quarter of that pie, then you get into cognitive fatigue and lower energy and the inability to think and function as well. And so it's really important for people. And there's all sorts of levels of brain injury. You've got mild, moderate, severe. That's based on something called the Glasgow index or scale. And we primarily work with people with mild to moderate brain injury. Gayann?
Well, I would just like to add that people who have severe brain injuries, many times they have other resources like Medicaid and Medicare. They might qualify for more supports. But people with mild TBI, sometimes you go in for a car accident, and the doctor will check you out and see that, oh, gee, you have whiplash, but won't even look and check you to see if you have a brain injury. And you go home, you have major headaches, you can't focus, you can't think, you can't do your job. And then you might follow up with somebody about your brain and your brain. And then at that point, you may or may not get treatment. You might just think, oh, it's just the whiplash or whatever. But we have so many people that have not been able to find resources for treatment because it's a mild brain injury. And so we try to really be a resource for those people that are kind of left out of the benefit world.
And I do want to I want to clarify that there's nothing mild about a mild brain injury. Nada, nothing mild.
Hmm.
There are some severe symptoms that many of our colleagues and friends have in terms of dizziness and vertigo and headaches and seizures, and there's just nothing that is mild. I can tell you just from my own point of view here. And another thing I'd like to say is that concussion is brain injury. I know back in 1992 when I was hit head on by a cement truck in the Bahamas, which is what caused my first brain injury. And I went to the doctor, this is back in 92, because I didn't, when I was talking, I didn't know where I was going. I was doing a training up in Fort Collins, and I knew this workshop like I did it so many times. And I had three things on a flip chart and didn't know what the other two were. They popped in at 2 in the morning, that sort of thing. And the doctor said, "Oh, just don't worry about it. You just had a concussion. You'll get better." And just sent me off on my merry way. And I didn't get better. And so I really didn't know what was wrong at that time until a colleague had called and let me know that what happens, your brain is like jello. And so when that truck hit, and I went forward and backward, the brain shakes like that, just like when you get hit rear-ended. A lot of people get in rear-end accidents, and which I did for the number 2, number 3 of my brain injuries. I've gotten rear-ended, and it's called coup contre coup, and your brain actually shakes. And so that can cause a brain injury. So the good news about the whole thing with brain injury, in 1992, I was struggling to find some resources and even struggling to find people who understood it. Now, because of our veterans that are coming back from the military, because of the IED explosions, now because of our football players and our kids, people understand a lot more about brain injury. There's a lot more resources, and it's not as when people go and complain about some of the symptoms, it's easier to find some resources now than it was back in 1992 when I didn't know what the heck was wrong with me.
Wow. I actually first found out about brain injuries through football, through American football. I was listening to a talk, I think, by American psychologist Malcolm Gladwell, and he was giving a large talk about it, and that resonated with me as somebody who plays a lot of sports. But I wanted to, you mentioned something about really providing, again, that $400 stipend to your community. What is sort of an achievement that you're both most proud of within your work in Brain Injury Hope Foundation? Is there a particular story? Is it an event? Is it even an initiative that you've run? I'd be very interested to hear about other achievements that you've had within your community.
I'm most proud of the fact that we've been able to continue to give that financial emergency financial support to Coloradans, because we have to raise that money, and it's just thanks to some wonderful donors, we've been able to do that over the years since 2018, and we continue to kind of grow that program. And then the other thing that I think Joanne and I are both really proud of is the Survivor Series. And I'll just let Joanne talk a little bit about our Survivor Series.
That our Survivor Series is something that we brought to the Brain Injury Hope Foundation. And it was something we did in a past life, another iteration. And so we raise funds and get donations so that we can do this 8 times a year. It's the second Friday of the month from 1 to 2:30 Mountain Time. I'm really proud that we moved the Survivor Series. It used to be face-to-face, and then COVID hit, and we didn't know what we were going to do, so we piloted it on Zoom. And I'm proud to say that we successfully moved the Survivor Series to this virtual platform, and we've grown it so that our Survivor Series is now all over the country and all over the world. Anybody can connect to it. It's just fascinating that I think people are sending our flyers to people who know people who know people, and we have over 100 people that sign up, usually maybe 125, 133, something like that. And you get at least 50%, 50 to 60 that show up. And in fact, our next one is January 14th. And it's near and dear to our hearts to do this and to impact so many people. And we invite the entire brain injury community as well as family, friends, anybody who wants to be educated. We've done programs. Our first program is a survivor panel. So it's very interesting. In this particular panel, there are 3 of our survivors who have written books. And there is one who is a stroke survivor, and that's called an ABI, somebody who's had a stroke or Parkinson's, MS, whatever, is an acquired brain injury. And then in terms of our emergency funds, we give them to people with traumatic brain injuries. That's like falls, or you get hit by a horse in the head, or you are in an automobile accident, or you get hit with a hammer. One of our folks who was on a panel in the past actually got hit on a hammer. She was in Washington, D.C., and somebody hit her on the head with a hammer, and she's written a book called Headstrong. So, so it's a lot of folks that are in the brain injury community are trying to do something and make sense of what's happened to them. I've also written a book that I just published in 2019 called Getting Hit, Getting Up, Moving Beyond, My Journey Through Brain Injury. And I'm most proud of that because it's 27 years in the making, and I wanted to share with the community all the different tools and things that I've learned through the years and have something that'll stay here beyond my life. So we're very proud of the Survivor Series, and any of your listeners are certainly welcome to reach out to us, and we can send you a flyer, and you're certainly welcome to tune in and be part of this. We've got a great lineup for 2022.
Wow, that's amazing, and one impact. I'm definitely going to be putting that in the about section of this series and be able to share it with my network as well on this really important subject, especially because you're hearing really those firsthand testimonies, and the best way to learn is really through meeting people always. So Gayann and Joan, I wanted to really ask you as well, because every person who comes on the show has a very different perspective about this, but always probably the most interesting answer to hear to this question is really, what does accessibility mean to you and to your communities? What does access and inclusion really mean?
I would say that we strive to make all of our services available to people with all disabilities. And sometimes people have a picture of that. For example, maybe somebody is hearing impaired and we need to have an interpreter, a sign language interpreter. But we want to look beyond the obvious, and sometimes we have people with brain injuries who have sensory disabilities. So, for example, somebody that's really sensitive to light or noises or smells, even, and because of their brain injury, we want to make sure that we meet all of those. And so, whenever we get a request for an accommodation, we do everything we can to make sure that that requested accommodation is met, whether it be providing interpreters or making sure that we use even universal kind of design ideas. But we use accessiBe for our website, and also for our other business, CTAT, and we'll talk about that maybe in another spotlight interview. But being in compliance with the ADA and making sure people with all types of disabilities can use our website, and and uh, and the technology piece of this is really important. And technology can really, we see technology changing people's lives all the time, whether it be a speech device or whatever. But accessiBe has been a big part of our ability to become more accessible.
And for me, it's
Thank
really
you.
when face to face, and I had to, when we had a location that was no longer open to us, I was in search of the perfect location, if there was one, to provide a room that takes lighting, sound, comfortable chairs into place, taking into account, like Gayann talked about, sensory issues. And also, it was very interesting. We were providing food when we were face to face, and we had a caterer. And so we were mindful of gluten free, dairy free, nightshades, and other foods related to medical issues. And we had volunteers to help support all the different types of accommodations. So we wanted to be very mindful. It's really about walking the walk and walking the talk. And if we're going to provide, we want to provide the best possible experience we can. There was one room that was given to us for free if we wanted it, and we walked away because the lighting and the sound wasn't as good as the room that we picked, that we had to pay for a training center. It was just a better fit for the community. And we are not to say we weren't grateful for the organization, the community that offered that to us. We really were. It's just that as a brain injury survivor myself, I knew it was impacting my senses, and it was impacting me. I knew that it would be impacting the rest of our community, or many people in the community. So we're very mindful in everything we do. It's about dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And like Oprah said, love is in the details. And so we pay attention to all the
I
details.
I I, well, I love that answer, and I love how Gayann and Joanne, you both merged elements of, yes, there's accessibility on the internet, but also we need to think about accessibility and accommodations throughout the whole process, from the room to the food to basically any person that could come you could come into contact with. So that's a really important message to really make sure, again, dot the dot the I's and cross the T's. Um, if you both had a message to the business community, because I'm sure you work very closely with the business community, you just mentioned, for example, working with a community center or a vendor, what would that message be to them to cater to the community of people with brain injuries?
Well, I would say that many people with brain injuries, it's a hidden disability. So you might look at somebody and not have any idea that they have issues or need accommodations, and they might not speak up either. So we want to be aware that people with brain injuries may have a hidden disability. Anybody could. And business owners need to be mindful of providing accommodations, and reaching out to organizations like the Brain Injury Hope Foundation if they don't understand what accommodations are needed. And working in the employment arena, it's really not that difficult to accommodate an employee or a potential employee. And so I just like to encourage businesses to give people a chance, learn more about them, work with them, find out what they need, get educated. And if someone discloses they have a brain injury, like at the interview or after they've been hired, don't fire them. Give them a chance and learn what they need, and reach out to the resources in your community if you don't understand or you need help. There are people out here that know a lot about accommodating people with different types of disabilities. So just you have to keep in mind that anybody you run into could have some type of a disability, and it's not always they're in a wheelchair, for example. And so we just have to be mindful.
Absolutely.
I couldn't say it any better than Gayann has, and an example of a person with a hidden disability is me. And nobody would know unless I disclose it, or you work closely with me, and then you'll see the little things that might be very challenging. So I couldn't have said it any better.
And that's a super important message. And I want to thank you both for being so open and honest during this conversation. Really, just the last question I wanted to ask you, and I'm not sure if you prepared me to ask this question, but if you could have a conversation with anybody in the world, who would it be? Why?
I'd like to interview a high-profile person. I'd like to find somebody, an NFL player, an actor, an actress, somebody that's well known, who would be willing to disclose that they have a brain injury and would be the face and spokesperson for the Brain Injury Hope Foundation, and somebody that would help market and bring in funds so that to help us get funding so we can give away more money and more emergency funds and provide more education and training and help us fill our Zoom room of 500 seats when we do this Survivor series. So that's my dream. That's what I'm putting out there, that there's somebody that instead of going year to year, which is what happens to us at the end of the year, we have to put applications on hold, we stop the Survivor series, and then we do a marketing campaign, we put it out there, and every year we get by. And we would like to, the dream is, and the vision is to bring in more money than just going year to year. And my day is a beautiful day when I start writing checks. And I write checks and I put them in the mail, and I know that it's helping somebody. That $400 is like $1 million to that person. And so my dream is really to interview and to get somebody on board who wants to be the face of our organization.
Amazing. So Gayann and Joanne.
I was just going to say I write grants in my free time for the Brain Injury Hope Foundation, and so I was thinking about this, and I was like, I want to meet Melinda Gates, so and connect with other leaders but Melinda Gates, why not? Other foundation leaders, excuse me, that could be a support for the Brain Injury Hope Foundation.
I just wanted to say, first of all, that was amazing and very, very heartwarming, Joanne. But really, it's been a pleasure to get to know you both that little bit better, to learn a little bit more about what it is to have a brain injury, and really, if there's anything more that us at accessiBe or anyone else in the community can do to help, we're more than happy to get involved. Joanne and Gayann, I wanted to thank you again for being guests on the show, and I look forward to our next conversation.
We want to thank you, and we just also want to let you know how grateful we are that we found accessiBe, and we're very, very pleased with the service that we have, so that somebody has issues with lighting or whatever, they can hit that little icon and they can actually go to our website and have it accessible to them in a way that fits their brain and who they are. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot. And until the next time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye now.